So Jeff Cavalier from ATHLEAN-X has always been like a huge proponent of making lean gains without gaining too much fat, and he really doesn't like bulking and cutting.
Alright, pick one. Would you rather build muscle or burn fat? Well, today we get to blow up the bulking cutting myth once and for all and do both at the same time.
And quite vehemently so.
Stop with the bulking cutting bullshit. Seriously, I don't want to hear that ever again.
Now, considering that he's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, YouTube fitness channel with like over 9 million subscribers, I think it's especially relevant to address his position and whether he's actually correct. Can you really make lean gains outside of a few circumstances effectively, or is it pretty much bullshit? So let's see what Dr. Mike Israetel, who is a former professor of exercise and sports science, as well as the founder of Renaissance Periodization, has to say about that.
Or that it's possible, even in a more extreme sense, to gain muscle while losing fat. All right? And I think these situations are highly unlikely. A hypercaloric diet is the most powerful weapon for muscle gain. That means eating more calories than you burn, which will result in weight gain. Trying to gain muscle while losing fat at the same time is essentially taking out our two biggest weapons for both muscle gain and fat loss. It's probably not that great of an idea because of this fact. It really stacks the deck against both processes. Trying to do them at the same time makes both of them needlessly more difficult because you're taking away the two best weapons. And both processes are already difficult. I don't know anyone who has an easy time with muscle gain and fat loss. All right, it's always at least a bit of a challenge, even for the gifted. Why stack the deck even further? For most of people's training lifespan, it's not a good idea to assume that muscle loss and fat building are processes that go together, because most of the time they really don't.
So in case you want to learn more about this, I'm gonna have the link in the video description. So I don't know about you guys, but have you ever tried making lean gains without gaining any fat or even losing fat while building muscle? If you're not a newbie, if you don't have a lot of muscle memory, or if you're on drugs, or if you're really fat, I doubt that you've seen any significant progress really. Like, it's such an inefficient way to go about things. Yet Jeff, as a clearly advanced lifter, still claims that he's gotten even leaner and bigger at the same time.
Matter of fact, guys who have been watching me lately have commented and said that, Jeff, you seem to have added muscle, you seem to have gotten leaner. It's true, I've done that. I said I started to do it when I was training for zero, and it's continued here.
By saying that, he pretty much admits that he's either just lying or he's taking some special sports supplements, if you get what I mean. So if it's obviously more efficient to actually be in a surplus and gain weight over time, then why is Jeff still so against that? Well, that brings me to my next point, which is Jeff has an obsession with being really lean. To the point where I would say it's very unhealthy and possibly bordering on like body dysmorphia. Because apparently, according to him, if you're not shredded all the time, you look like shit or you're some fat guy.
Every single guy that talks about a bulk and cut being necessary is a fat guy that likes to be fat for half the year. And the guys that talk about bulking and cutting, half the year they look like shit, and the other half of the year they look, they look like they're in good shape.
And I'm sorry, but if you think just not being shredded all the time is being fat, then you have to fix something up here, really. And so it's no wonder that we see the same kind of mentality with Jesse, who Jeff has been training for about 3 years now.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the idea that while my abs may not be as visible or as defined, as I put on more weight, it's okay.
And so it's been about 3 years that Jeff has been personally training Jesse, and while he has made some newbie gains in the first year or so, Jeff actually claims he gained 20 pounds of muscle.
Jesse has just hit that milestone, 20 pounds of muscle, since he really kind of just started to train here with us consistently. Now,
which I don't think is the case, it's more like 10 pounds at the most. But then after this initial newbie gains phase, he didn't seem to have made any more progress. He pretty much looks the same now as he did like 2 years ago. And well, I'm not surprised. That's what happens when you refuse to gain any weight. So Jesse has a hard time eating a lot, yet Jeff really focuses on cutting out all the junk food, which generally is a good thing. But let's be honest, if you're trying to bulk up and you have a hard time gaining weight, just eating chicken and rice and vegetables is not the way to go there.
A lot of people will say, eat big, get big. And I've disagreed with that for a very long time now.
The good news is that I've pretty much cut all the shit out. I can't remember the last time I had a gummy bear, and I really don't eat sweets that often.
And maybe eating a few more gummy bears would be the way to go here. Yet Jeff uses Jesse as an example of why bulking and cutting is apparently unnecessary.
And the other people say bulk and then cut. And as Jesse in his 8-pack can actually show you, he's never had to do that. He's been able to add the muscle here without having to bulk up and then cut all that fat and get rid of it.
Even though Jesse was a total beginner, he was really skinny. And of course he's gonna add some muscle without gaining fat. But then as we can see, after a while this doesn't work anymore. It's just gonna backfire on you. You won't be able to progress anymore effectively and you will just end up looking the same every year. So in conclusion, just don't waste your time and don't be afraid of a little bit of body fat gain. It's not the end of the world, and you don't have to get fat, but some fat gain is just inevitable when you're in a surplus and when you're trying to maximize your muscle gains. Unless you want to end up like Jesse and not make any progress really, in which case you might want to look at your psychology and why you're actually so afraid of gaining a little bit of fat. And also, I know a lot of you really like Jeff Cavalier, and don't get me wrong, like most of the content I really enjoy myself and I learn a lot from him. But when it comes to certain topics, he's just not the authority that you think he is, and not everything he says is great advice. Keep in mind, he's got like a physical therapist background, so with a lot of the stuff he's doing, he really puts an emphasis on that, and sometimes at the expense of actually making progress. So if you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and if you want to see some of my own training, you can follow me on Instagram.